Space is an inherently hostile environment for humans. Without protection, we wouldn't survive in the vacuum of space for more than 2 minutes. Reaching space involves a delicate balance, essentially riding the edge of a controlled chemical explosion. Since 1961, fewer than 700 people have ventured into space. Private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin aim to significantly raise that number, with SpaceX already accepting reservations for orbital flights around Earth. However, as the commercial space industry grows, we must recognize that accidents, some fatal, will inevitably happen. How dangerous is space travel? Many of us recall the catastrophic events that claimed the lives of 14 astronauts. 2 of the 5 space shuttles disintegrated, Challenger in 1986 shortly after launch, and Columbia in 2003 upon re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. In total, 30 astronauts and cosmonauts have died either during training or on space missions. There have also been numerous near misses. Currently, 2 astronauts aboard the International Space Station are extending their stay by 6 months because NASA deemed their Boeing Starliner vehicle unsafe for the return trip. Starliner has faced a series of developmental issues, from flammable tape and jammed valves to faulty parachutes, with a thruster malfunction being the critical factor that led NASA to abandon it as a return option. Even on the ground, safety is not guaranteed. Beyond the tragic deaths of 3 Apollo 1 astronauts in a 1967 launchpad fire, about 120 people died in a 1960 launchpad explosion of an unmanned rocket in Russia, and hundreds more were killed in 1996 when a Chinese rocket veered off course and crashed into a village. Space travel carries a fatality rate of roughly 3%. While this may seem low, it is higher than many extreme sports, such as base jumping or wingsuit flying. The only recreational activities that rival the risks of space travel are solo free climbing and scaling heights above 19,685 feet, 6,000 meters in the Himalayas. The new era of civilian astronauts. The 2020s have marked the dawn of civilian spaceflight. Following the death of teacher Krista McAuliffe in the Challenger disaster, NASA stopped sending civilians into space. But for private companies, civilian flights are part of their business model. The first fully civilian crew orbited Earth aboard a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft in 2021 as part of the Inspiration 4 mission. Since 2020, 69 private astronauts have ventured into space, although only 46 have crossed the Kármán line, the official boundary of space. The commercial space industry's safety record is far from flawless. No civilians have died in space yet, but 1 pilot was killed and another was severely injured in a 2014 test flight of Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two. That accident followed a pre-launch rocket test explosion in 2007 that claimed 3 lives and injured 3 more. SpaceX, the largest commercial space company, with over 13,000 employees and a market valuation of $180 billion, has not experienced any fatalities during space flights. However, it has had 1 death and hundreds of workplace injuries. Recently, SpaceX's Polaris Dawn crew returned home after a 5-day orbital mission that included the first ever spacewalk by private astronauts, with their capsules safely landing in the Gulf of Mexico. High stakes and extreme conditions, re-entry into Earth's atmosphere is one of the most perilous phases of any space mission. To make a safe return, the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule carrying 4 astronauts executed a de-orbit burn, positioning itself for re-entry into the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. During re-entry, the spacecraft faces extreme heat, up to 1,900 degrees Celsius, 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, due to the friction and pressure of its high-speed collision with the atmosphere, traveling at about 27,000 kilometers per hour, 16,777 miles per hour. Yet, the crew remains comfortably cool, shielded by the Crew Dragon's heat shield, located on the capsule's 4-meter-wide bottom. The Polaris Dawn mission also marked the first spacewalk by non-government astronauts, requiring specialized spacesuits that had never before been tested in space. Because the SpaceX Dragon capsule lacks an airlock, the entire interior was exposed to the vacuum of space during the spacewalk, with all crew members relying on their suits for survival. A spacesuit functions like a miniature spacecraft, protecting astronauts from rapid temperature shifts of hundreds of degrees as they move in and out of direct sunlight. Even the tiniest tear or puncture could be fatal. As this new frontier unfolds, every aspect of these missions is meticulously analyzed to refine the technology. Research is being conducted on the effects of high radiation environments and how space travel impacts the human body. Studies are also evaluating how future deep space travelers could diagnose and treat medical issues. An intangible yet profound benefit of space travel is what astronauts call the overview effect, a sense of awe and connectedness from seeing Earth from space. The future of space expansion. The private space industry is rapidly developing, growing year after year. SpaceX is generating revenue from its Starlink satellites and transporting cargo and crew to the International Space Station, with expected earnings of $15 billion this year. Meanwhile, Blue Origin builds rocket engines and has contracts with NASA. Both companies are offering space travel to high-net-worth individuals, though this represents only a fraction of their income. Space tourism remains far from accessible to the average person. Virgin Galactic offers a brief suborbital flight for $450,000, but reaching Earth's orbit will set you back a staggering $55 million. The space tourism market, valued at $750 million in 2023, is projected to grow to $5.2 billion over the next decade. Reusable rockets have dramatically reduced the cost of launching spacecraft, now 10 times cheaper than just a decade ago. For space tourism to truly take off among a wider demographic, it must be perceived as safe, both in reality and public perception. Many space entrepreneurs believe space travel will follow the same trajectory as aviation, which also began as an adventure for the wealthy and thrill seekers. Since the 1930s, advancements in technology and safety features have reduced the aviation industry's fatality rate by a factor of 3,000 per million miles traveled. A more achievable target for space travel might be to make it as safe as driving a car. Driving is actually riskier than flying, with your annual odds of dying in a car accident being 1 in 5,000, compared to 1 in 11 million for air travel. Elon Musk's vision of millions of passengers and a city on Mars may not come to pass in the near future. But if the cost of a journey to Earth's orbit drops to that of a luxury cruise, countless people could experience the thrill of weightlessness and the extraordinary beauty of our planet from space.